Hi, everybody. Mrs. Merkel, where are you? Today you would have understood what Greeks are all about. What a remarkable day this has been. Really remarkable. And I really do mean it. If Mrs. Merkel was here, she'd understand. But I think people who've got to understand even more than Mrs. Merkel needs to are 11 million Greeks in Greece and another 11 million around the world. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. Stefano, where are you? Bravo. Bravo. Greg Purpose was one of the very first guys to respond to this speech that I gave in Thessaloniki in November. And I remember having a Skype conversation with Greg. And the result of that is that I'm here today. And thank you very much, Greg. You've done an amazing job, really amazing. I used to live in New York City. In fact, I've had a very long relationship with the city because of the work that I've been doing and the companies that I worked for. And I lived here for about 4 or 5 years during the 90s. And it's with a great sense of nostalgia that I've been in New York for a few days. You know, the city, this was Kelly and Ping. You guys might know it, down in Soho. I lived right next to that in a beautiful loft. My office was up there with a magnificent view up the river, over the Brooklyn Bridge. Real nostalgia. But I got to tell you something. That city produces love in me. By the way, that's Greg. This is us having lunch at a restaurant called Moorings in Vouliagmeni, which is 5 minutes from where I live, right? And you've got, like, the sea. And you've got, like, islands in the distance. Okay? It's the most inspiring place on the planet. The most inspiring place on the planet. And just on the other side, there's a building which a Mexican friend of mine once said to me, bring me back when they finish this fucking building, which is, of course, the Parthenon, right? It's incredibly inspiring. Let's talk a bit about brands. The word brand comes from this over here, which is branding cattle, okay? Putting a logo on the animals that belong to you so you can separate your animals from the rest of the animals out on the fields. Very similar to a tattoo, okay? Very similar to a tattoo. But that is a logo. It's not a brand. A brand is a lot more than that, okay? That is a brand. It's everything. I don't care if Angelina Jolie has got a tattoo with a dragon or a cat or a dog. She is a brand. That's a logo. Huge, huge difference. Okay? This piece of copy over here comes from the Think Different commercial, which I was part of the team that worked on that when Steve Jobs went back to Apple in 1997. And it's a remarkable copy. It says, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. That sounds like every Greek that I know. Every single Greek that I know. That's our DNA. The most common word in the Greek language is the word malaka. The most common phrase in the Greek language is the word δεν γίνεται. And we combine these together. And we say, δεν γίνεται ρε malaka. Γίνεται. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. We're missing that second part. Γιατί δεν γίνεται ρε μαλάκα. Well, you know something? Γίνεται. Piros Dimas did not pick up weights in 2004 saying, "Then γίνεται." The football team did not walk into the stadium in Lisbon saying, "Then γίνεται." Stefanos doesn't say, "Then γίνεται." And the guys who built the Acropolis certainly did not say, "Then γίνεται." It's time to get rid of the then and to keep the γίνεται. Γιατί ξέρεις κάτι? Γίνεται ρε μαλάκα. We're all wearing a t-shirt like that, man. Just open up. Just open up. Άρεξε. Nice word. Let's talk about brands. That's Lumix. It's considered to be one of the best digital cameras in the world. It costs $500. That's a Leica. Other people will tell you that that is the best digital camera in the world, and it costs $800. Okay? Wallpaper says there's little need to disguise our burning passion for all things Leica. What's good enough for celebrated snappers like Henri Cartier-Bresson and Nan Golden is certainly good enough for us too. Gizmodo says they're made in the same factory. They have the same sensor, the same lens, the same LCD housing material, embedded software, battery, and battery charger. Both take identical pictures. Yet the Leica is often described as taking warmer, smoother, somehow better pictures than the Lumix, which would be amazing given the technology is identical. So what's the difference between them? There's the difference. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. By the way, I've got one of those two cameras. Which one do I have? The Leica. Would I be an idiot and buy the Leica? Of course I would be. It's a beautiful badge. It's a great brand. I don't want to walk around with a Lumix thing around my neck. So a brand is nothing more than a set of impressions that lives in consumers' minds. Nothing more than that. Okay? And by the way, we're all brands. We create impressions. People have impressions of us that live inside their heads. A powerful brand is a set of powerful, consistent, and believable impressions, like Leica. The best brands are protagonists. They represent the category, like Absolute, which, by the way, is a Swedish vodka in a category that's supposed to be Russian. That's great branding. It should be the aim of every brand to be the protagonist of its category. So when you look at that, what do you think of? You guys are good. What's the Coca-Cola of cigarettes? Have you seen this before? The Marlboro vodka. The Absolute of sports shoes. The Nike of coffee shops. The Starbucks of small city cars. I saw one of those in New York yesterday. It looked ridiculous. It was so small in the city. I mean, the buildings are huge, this little thing, you know. The Smart of computers. The Apple of the Mediterranean. You guys are really good. Of course it's Greece. Of course it's Greece. But Greece is an idea, right? And Greece is made up of 11 million Greeks who live there, plus another 11 million around the world. So making Greece the apple of the Mediterranean is actually up to us. It's about Greeks. Okay? In other words, it's about you. And that takes me directly to the theme of my talk, which is you as a brand. Okay? Because Mrs. Merkel is not here. And the only way she'll understand it and the world will understand it is if we communicate it, if we make it happen. okay? So I'm going to give you some tips about branding in today's world. That's what a brand is. That's who you are. Yes, of course, you've got your DNA, but who you are in the social sense are the impressions that you make on people, the impressions that live in people's heads. And the more powerful those impressions, the more powerful you are as a brand. Brand is what people think of you, and you've got a brand whether you like it or not. Branding is very different. It's the process of managing what people think of you. It's making decisions. By the way, in Greek, phimi, reputation. Διαφήμιση is the management of reputation. Everything you say, everything you don't say, everything you do, everything you don't do, everything communicates. Okay? This is something that we as a country never learned. We've done very well selling tourism, but then we do the most remarkable things, which create impressions. Like at the end of October, Papandreou and Samaras having this hugely public fight with each other, which was played throughout the media worldwide. It's ridiculous. It communicates much more than any ad campaign or stupid logo ever could. Everything communicates. I've got a quick quiz for you. Is that a plastic flower exporter, yes or no? Any takers? No. Is that a Bollywood producer? Sorry? Yes. Who said yes? No? Is that the president of the third largest nation on earth? That's Hu Jintao. That's Manmohan Singh. They are respectively the heads of the two largest countries in the world. And if Facebook was a country, it would be the third largest in the world, which is quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable. There's Facebook in the middle, 800 million users. The US has got a population of 314, Brazil 204, etc. In fact, Facebook is bigger than the USA and Brazil and Russia and Japan and Germany and France combined. That's remarkable stuff. And by the way, it's grown from 1 million to 800 million in 8 years. And Facebook today is the size of the entire internet in 2004. And by the way, the kid who started this was born in 1984. But Facebook is just the tip of the iceberg. Because underneath there are so many social media platforms. In fact, on that little chart over there are about 140 of them. So anybody who thinks Facebook's about to disappear should think again. Things have changed dramatically. Social media is not about media. In fact, I think it's a terribly bad word. It's not at all a medium, okay? It's about a fundamental shift in the way that consumers think, feel, and behave. And this consumer can make you or break you. And if you're not sure, you could have asked Gaddafi. Or Mubarak, for that matter. If you're not scared, you're not paying attention. But on the other side, nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Everything has changed. Absolutely everything. Today we live in a world of finding friends, liking stuff, commenting, sharing. But in fact, absolutely nothing has changed. That's the Café Neon. That's the Café Neon. And if you think about it, in the Café Neon, people found friends, they liked, they commented, and they shared. So this is the world where marketing is conducted today. This is the world in which brands are built today. Okay? And with the incredible power of these media, we as individuals have the opportunity of being there and building brands and marketing. And if you're using Facebook, what I'm going to do is give you a couple of tips on how to deal with this thing called Facebook. Okay? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie, written in the 50s, I believe. Okay? And I want to read what he says at the bottom here. What are the 6 ways of making people like you? See pages 73 to 128. What are the 12 ways of winning people to your way of thinking? See pages 131 to 209. What are the 9 ways to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment? See pages 213 to 243. This is stuff you will not learn at business school. This is what marketing is all about in today's age of the conversation economy. And it should come as no surprise that last year, 2 of the bestsellers on the New York Times bestseller list were those 2 books. The first one by Guy Kawasaki is called Enchantment, and the second one is called The Thank You Economy by a fellow called Gary Vaynerchuk. And let me tell you a bit about Gary. Gary's a 33, 34-year-old kid who took over his father's wine business, which was turning over $3 million a year. And within 3 years, he took the business to $45 million, using Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Nothing else. Social media is not media. It's the Café Neon. And in the Café Neon, the conversation is not a commercial. You can't burst in and saying, "Yassas, it's not going to work. They're going to kick you right out." Okay? You need to take your place at the table politely. You need to engage politely. Changing the subject somewhat. Jazz. Jazz is relentless innovation. You never play the same tune the same way. Never. No way. That's what marketing has become like. There is no marketing plan anymore. You play jazz. Okay? You can't play jazz if you don't really understand music deep inside, but you have to let go of what you know. Lose the fear. That's what makes it swing. Arxe. I love that word. Jazz is one big conversation between the music and the setting, between the player and his instrument, between the player and the group, and between the group and the audience, between the people in the audience. Yes, jazz is a conversation. It builds community. A jazz group is multiple expressions of the same mind. It's the most remarkable thing to watch. 4 musicians playing totally different musical instruments, playing as one. Exactly the same mind. It's a remarkable thing. And importantly here, the music chooses the leader. Content is everything. Great content is what gives rise to great leaders. Marketing is jazz. Just to talk a bit about Greece. Greece is one of the greatest brands that's never been branded. We've spent millions promoting tourism. We've done very little to develop this brand. In fact, it's kind of stuck in the 60s. And that's a wonderful image from the 60s. I remind you, the 60s was this beautiful black and white world. Melina Mercouri, Onassis, Mykonos, Theodorakis, Hadzidakis, and Zorba the Greek. And Zorba the Greek. We're kind of like frozen there. And all of a sudden, this wonderful character, who the world really, really has loved and learned a lot from, okay, suddenly becomes the lazy one. He suddenly becomes the one who can afford to philosophize. The dancer. And there's a thin line between love and hate. And he represents what every Northern European does not have inside. And all of a sudden they realize, or they think, they're paying the bill for that guy. It's a huge problem. I'm not saying let's get rid of Zorba, for God's sake. He's an inextricable part of who we are. We have to bring some balance into the mix. We need some Apollo to balance out Dionysus, because that's who we're talking about up there. We need some Apollo. By the way, I was talking to a Greek audience, and I spoke about the need to park Zorba, and somebody said to me, "Μέχρι πότε, κύριε Economide?" I said, "Το Σάββατο." We don't appreciate ourselves quite as much as certain people, non-Greeks, do. And here's something from Robin Williams, which is really quite amazing. Your economy might go to hell, but that does not mean you're helpless. Economic data constantly changes for everyone, in Europe, in America, everywhere. What does not change is your legacy, your identity. The Parthenon will not leave Athens. It's there to remind you that progress and prosperity will return. When I visit Greece, I cannot ignore Delos, the Parthenon, and Mykenai. By the way, in the same piece, he spoke about the fact that when he goes to London, he has no need whatsoever to go and see Buckingham Palace. And when he's in Berlin, he has no need to go and see the Berlin Wall. When he's in Athens, he has to see the Parthenon. I gave a talk at the Acropolis Museum the other day to about 100 business leaders. And I asked them how many of them had been there before. Out of 100, 5 had been there before. It's the most remarkable museum that I've set foot in. Greece is the heart, the mind, and the soul of the Mediterranean. Greece needs to own this. Greece needs to express this. Greece needs to inspire and be inspired by this. And when I say Greece, I mean Greeks. I mean all of us. Every single one of us. Because we are Greeks, we have the power to imagine, and now it is time to imagine the future. And I'm going to read you that little excerpt from my blog, which says, Greece is on the verge of bankruptcy, but we are not a bankrupt nation. We are Greeks, people with the power to imagine, people with the intelligence to turn imagination into reality. We imagine democracy. We imagine the Acropolis. Now it's time to imagine the future. I first said this back in January 2010. I repeated it in November. By the way, in 2010, it was "Άκουταν τον Αμερικανάκι," right? Because the crisis hadn't bitten, right? In November, people listened. People listened because they understand this now. It's necessary. It's totally necessary. But now we need to take it one step further because it's now time to create the future. And in fact, tomorrow, that's exactly what I want to talk about. We've got a major initiative to talk about tomorrow, which takes all of this thinking, this need to imagine the future, and sets up a way in which we can actually do it. And I really look forward to seeing all of you there tomorrow so we can share these thoughts together and talk about it, because Greece needs it big time. I have put forward the thought that Greece could be the apple of the Mediterranean. It's clear that the crisis we're going through is not a Greek crisis. It's a global crisis. There's a distrust happening between institutions and individuals. There's all sorts of stuff happening. Greece is at the brunt of it. We've become the poster child for what's happening. And we've got a real opportunity to show not only ourselves the way forward, but to show the world a new way forward. We can become the apple of the Mediterranean. And as that newspaper said, it's a crazy idea. In fact, it's an idea that's just about crazy enough to succeed. So, hope I see you tomorrow. Γίνεται. Thank you very much.